When the ancient jungle awakens, its roar will shake the world. A white King Kong, born of legend, rises to defend a realm on the brink of annihilation. Titans of claw, fang, and fury clash in a war that will decide the fate of man and beast alike. Betrayal, sacrifice, and an unstoppable enemy push the hero to his breaking point. In the final roar, only one will stand, and the jungle will never be the same. The jungle was never silent, but that night it listened. A heavy, electric stillness clung to the air, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. The moon, pale and swollen, spilled silver light over the canopy, painting the leaves in ghostly hues. Somewhere deep within, a sound rumbled, low, primal, ancient. It was not thunder. Miles away, in a remote research outpost, Dr. Anya Varma adjusted the satellite feed on her cracked laptop. The seismic readings were off the charts, tremors pulsing in a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. She leaned closer, her breath fogging the screen. Then she heard it, a roar, not just loud, colossal. It rolled through the jungle like a tidal wave, shaking the ground beneath her feet. Birds exploded from the treetops in a frenzy. Monkeys screamed. Predators slunk into the shadows. And in the heart of the jungle, he stirred. The white King Kong, a towering, snow-furred colossus, opened his eyes for the first time in decades. His fur shimmered under the moonlight, his muscles rippling like coiled steel beneath the pale coat. Scars crisscrossed his chest, each one a story of battles fought long before humans walked these lands. He rose slowly, the ground trembling with each step. His breath steamed in the cool night air, and his golden eyes burned with an intelligence that was almost human. Far above, a drone buzzed, its camera locking onto the massive figure. In a control room thousands of miles away, General Kale Draven leaned forward in his chair. "There he is," Draven muttered, "the Titan of the White Peaks. Alive." But the White King Kong was not alone. From the depths of the jungle, shadows moved. Massive shapes, each crowned with jagged bone crests and eyes like molten fire. The jungle titans, creatures older than history, each one a living weapon. They had been dormant for centuries, bound by an unspoken truce. Something had broken that truce. Dr. Varma's radio crackled. "Anya, you need to get out of there," came the voice of her colleague, breathless with panic. "They're moving. All of them." Before she could respond, the ground split open just beyond the outpost. A claw, black as obsidian, the size of a tree trunk, tore through the soil. A monstrous reptilian head followed, its jaws lined with teeth like swords. The Bloodscale Rex had awakened. The White King Kong heard the roar of his ancient rival and turned toward it. His chest swelled, and he unleashed a bellow that shattered branches and sent shockwaves through the forest. The sound was not just a challenge, it was a declaration. The war for the jungle had begun. Draven's voice echoed in the control room. "Deploy the capture units. I want the White King Kong alive. The others, kill them." Helicopters roared into the night sky, their searchlights slicing through the darkness. Soldiers armed with railguns and electrified nets descended into the jungle. But they had no idea what they were walking into. The first chopper never made it. A massive vine, no, a serpent, lashed out from the canopy, coiling around the aircraft and crushing it like a toy. Flames lit the treetops as the wreckage fell. The White King Kong moved through the chaos like a ghost, his pale fur blending with the moonlight. He was not yet attacking. He was watching, calculating. Then he saw her, Dr. Varma, trapped beneath a fallen beam, struggling to free herself as the Bloodscale Rex closed in. The King Kong's golden eyes narrowed. With a ground-shaking leap, he landed between her and the predator. The impact sent a shock wave through the clearing. The Rex snarled, its breath hot and foul, but the White King Kong did not flinch. Two titans faced each other, the jungle holding its breath once more. The Rex struck first, lunging with jaws wide. Kong sidestepped, his massive hand slamming into the creature's skull, sending it crashing into a tree. The ground quaked. Dr. Varma crawled free, her eyes wide with disbelief. Kong roared again, louder, fiercer, and the Rex answered in kind. Somewhere in the shadows, other eyes watched. Titans, soldiers, and something far worse. The jungle was no longer a place of life. It was a battlefield. The blood-scale Rex lunged again, its jaws snapping shut with a sound like a steel trap. White King Kong twisted aside, the massive teeth grazing his shoulder and tearing a tuft of snow-white fur. The pain only sharpened his focus. He slammed his fist into the Rex's snout, the impact echoing like a cannon blast. The predator staggered back, shaking its head, but its molten eyes never left Kong. Above them, the whir of rotor blades grew louder. Searchlights cut through the canopy, blinding in their intensity. Soldiers rappelled down, their boots sinking into the soft jungle floor. They moved in formation, weapons raised, eyes darting between the two colossal beasts. "Target the Rex first," barked a voice over the comms. "Kong is secondary." But the jungle had other plans. From the shadows, a massive silhouette emerged. A hulking gorilla-like titan with obsidian fur and jagged bone armor growing from its shoulders. Gorth the Blackback, an ancient rival of Kong, stepped into the clearing. His roar was deeper, darker, and it made the soldiers freeze mid-stride. Kong's golden eyes flicked toward him. The last time they had met, the earth had split beneath their blows. The Rex, sensing an opportunity, circled to Kong's flank. Gorth moved to block his escape. The White King Kong was now caught between two predators, one reptilian, one simian, both eager to tear him apart. Dr. Varma scrambled behind a fallen log, her heart pounding. She fumbled for her radio. "This is Varma. We have multiple Titan-class entities in combat. You need to." Her words were drowned out by the sound of the Rex charging. Kong pivoted, catching the beast's lower jaw with both hands. Muscles bulged as he forced the jaws upward, preventing the killing bite. The Rex thrashed violently, tail whipping through the air and smashing into a soldier, sending him flying into the undergrowth. Gorth seized the moment, barreling into Kong's side. The impact was like a freight train, knocking the White King Kong off his feet. The Rex broke free, snapping at Kong's legs. The jungle floor became a blur of claws, fists, and teeth. Overhead, General Draven watched the chaos through a live drone feed. "Forget capture," he growled. "Bring them all down." Missiles streaked from the gunships, trailing smoke. The first exploded against Gorth's shoulder, tearing away chunks of bone armor. The second struck the Rex's flank, drawing a roar of rage. Kong used the distraction to roll to his feet. He grabbed a fallen tree, swinging it like a club. The trunk smashed into Gorth's chest, sending the black-furred titan stumbling backward. The Rex lunged again, but Kong sidestepped and brought the tree down across its skull. The wood splintered, but the blow was enough to send the predator crashing into a boulder. The soldiers advanced, nets crackling with high-voltage current. One managed to fire, the weighted mesh wrapping around Kong's arm. Electricity surged through him, his roar turning into a guttural snarl. But Kong was no ordinary beast. With a violent jerk, he tore the net apart, the shredded cables sparking in the dirt. He turned on the soldiers, not out of malice, but because they were in his way. A helicopter swooped lower, its minigun spinning up. Bullets tore through the foliage, kicking up dirt and leaves. Kong raised an arm to shield his face, but the rounds barely slowed him. Then, from deep within the jungle, another roar answered his. The ground trembled as a new titan emerged. Thalrock the Stonehide, a quadrupedal behemoth with skin like granite and tusks the size of tree trunks. His eyes glowed faintly blue, and each step cracked the earth beneath him. Dr. Varma's breath caught. For titans in one place, this was no coincidence. Something was calling them. Kong seemed to sense it too. His gaze shifted from his enemies to the distant mountains, where a strange, pulsating light flickered in the clouds. The Rex roared again, snapping him back to the fight. Gorth charged from the other side. Thalrock lowered his head, tusks aimed like spears. Kong was about to be crushed between three titans. With a burst of speed that defied his size, Kong leapt straight up, grabbing onto a thick vine that hung from the canopy. His weight tore it free, but it swung him over the charging beasts. He landed behind them, the ground shaking under the impact. The Rex skidded to a halt, confused. Gorith spun, snarling. Thalrock simply kept moving, his tusks plowing through trees as if they were grass. Kong pounded his chest, the sound echoing like war drums. The challenge was clear. If they wanted him, they'd have to come and get him. The soldiers didn't wait. Fire everything! Draven barked. Explosions lit the night. Rockets slammed into the Titans, showering the jungle with fire and debris. The Rex roared in pain, Gorith bellowed in fury, and Thalrock simply kept advancing, unstoppable. Kong used the chaos to grab Dr. Varma, lifting her effortlessly and placing her on his shoulder. She clung to his fur, her mind reeling. "Why are you helping me?" she shouted over the noise. Kong didn't answer, but his golden eyes told her enough. They moved through the jungle at incredible speed, Kong's massive strides carrying them away from the battlefield. Behind them, the roars of the Titans and the thunder of gunfire faded into the distance. But they were not alone. From the treetops, a pair of glowing red eyes tracked their every move. A shadow moved silently from branch to branch, keeping pace. This was no Titan. It was something smaller, faster, and far more cunning. Kong stopped at the edge of a cliff, the moonlight revealing a vast valley below. In its center stood a colossal stone structure, half buried in vines and moss. Strange symbols glowed faintly on its surface, pulsing in time with the light in the distant mountains. Dr. Varma gasped. "That's impossible. That temple is supposed to be a myth." Kong stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the structure. The air here was different, heavier, charged with an ancient energy. Then the red-eyed shadow dropped from the trees, landing silently behind them. It was a humanoid figure, tall and lean, its body covered in black chitinous armor. Its face was hidden behind a mask carved to resemble a snarling beast. In its hands, it held a spear tipped with a shard of glowing crystal. Dr. Varma froze. "What is that?" The figure tilted its head, studying them. Then, in a voice like grinding stone, it spoke. "The Titans are waking. The last roar is coming, and you are not ready." Before she could respond, the ground beneath the cliff cracked. Massive claws burst through the rock, followed by a head crowned with jagged horns. Another Titan was rising, one unlike any they had seen before. Kong roared, the sound shaking the valley. The masked figure leapt away into the shadows. The new Titan's eyes locked on Kong, and in that instant, Dr. Varma knew this was the true enemy. The jungle had only just begun to roar. The cliff face split like paper under the force of the emerging Titan. Shards of rock tumbled into the valley below, smashing into the ancient temple's moss-covered steps. The creature that rose from the earth was unlike any Kong had faced. Its body was plated in jagged, obsidian-black armor, each segment edged with glowing crimson veins. Two massive horns curved forward from its skull, each longer than a man's body, their tips dripping molten heat. Its eyes, deep, burning pits of red, locked onto Kong with a hatred that felt older than the jungle itself. Dr. Varma clung to Kong's fur, her breath shallow. "What is that?" she whispered. Kong's chest rumbled with a low growl. He didn't know the name, but he knew the threat. This was a Titan bred for war. The Horned Doom, as it would later be called, hauled itself fully onto the cliff. Its claws gouged deep trenches into the stone. The ground trembled with every step it took toward them. From the tree lean behind, the red-eyed shadow, the masked figure, watched silently, its head tilted slightly, as if measuring the distance between predator and prey. The Horned Doom roared, a sound so deep it seemed to vibrate inside the bones. Birds erupted from the canopy miles away. The temple's glowing symbols flared brighter, pulsing in sync with the Titan's heartbeat. Kong set Dr. Varma down gently behind a boulder. His golden eyes never left the Horned Doom. He pounded his chest once, not as a challenge, but as a promise. The Horned Doom charged. The impact when they met was like two mountains colliding. Kong's massive hands locked around the Titan's horns, muscles straining as he tried to halt its momentum. The horned doom pushed forward, claws scraping sparks from the stone beneath them. Kong shifted his weight, twisting to the side. The horned doom stumbled past him, its claws tearing through the cliff edge. Chunks of rock fell into the valley below. Dr. Varma ducked as debris rained down. She glanced toward the temple and froze. Figures were moving among the ruins. Dozens of them, tall, masked, armored in the same black chitin as the shadow that had spoken to her. They moved with eerie precision, forming a circle around the temple's central altar. One of them raised a staff tipped with a shard of glowing crystal. The light from the mountains pulsed faster. "Oh no," she breathed. Kong roared, drawing the horned doom's attention back to him. The Titan swung its head, horns slicing through the air. Kong ducked under the first strike, but the second caught him across the shoulder, tearing fur and flesh. Blood, bright against his white coat, splattered the stone. The horned doom pressed the attack, its claws slashing in brutal arcs. Kong blocked with his forearms, each blow driving him back toward the cliff edge. From below, the temple's glow intensified, casting long, jagged shadows up the cliff face. Far away, in the control room, General Draven watched the live feed from a high-altitude drone. His jaw tightened. "That's a new one," he muttered. "Bigger than Gorth, meaner than the Rex." An aide hesitated. "Sir, should we engage?" Draven's eyes narrowed. "Not yet. Let them weaken each other. Then we take the survivor." Back on the cliff, Kong seized an opening. As the horned doom lunged, Kong sidestepped and slammed his fist into the Titan's jaw. The blow echoed like a thunderclap, snapping the creature's head to the side. Kong followed with a second strike, an uppercut that lifted the horned doom's front claws off the ground. The Titan staggered, roaring in fury. But before Kong could press the advantage, the ground beneath them shook violently. From the valley below, a column of light shot into the sky from the temple's altar. The masked figures fell to their knees, chanting in a language older than human memory. The horned doom's eyes flared brighter. Its movements grew faster, more precise, as if the light was feeding it. Kong realized too late. The temple wasn't just a ruin. It was a weapon. The horned doom slammed into him with renewed force, driving him back into the cliff wall. Stone cracked under the impact. Kong roared in pain, his hands scrabbling for a grip on the Titan's horns. Dr. Varma darted from her hiding place, waving her arms. "Over here!" she shouted, trying to draw the horned doom's attention away from Kong. The Titan's head snapped toward her. Kong's eyes widened. With a surge of strength, he wrenched the horned doom's head aside, forcing it to face him again. The Titan snarled, but Kong didn't let go. He twisted, using the creature's own momentum to hurl it toward the cliff edge. The horned doom skidded dangerously close to the drop, claws gouging deep furrows in the stone to stop itself from falling. Kong pounded his chest again, the sound rolling across the valley. Below, the chanting reached a fever pitch. The column of light split into 3 beams, each shooting toward a different point in the jungle. In the distance, faint roars answered, deep, resonant, and growing closer. Dr. Varma's stomach dropped. "They're summoning more." The horned doom lunged again, but this time Kong was ready. He caught the Titan's horns, planted his feet, and shoved with all his strength. The two giants strained against each other, muscles trembling, claws scraping, breath steaming in the cool night air. Neither gave an inch. Then, from the treeline, a massive shadow moved, and Gorth the Blackback emerged once more, his bone armor cracked but his eyes burning with rage. He wasn't here to help. The night split with a roar so deep it seemed to shake the stars. Gorth the Blackback stepped into the moonlight, his bone armor cracked and blood-streaked, but his eyes burned with the same primal fury that had driven him since the dawn of the Titans. The horned doom turned its head toward the newcomer, crimson eyes narrowing. Kong stood between them, chest heaving, blood dripping from his shoulder. The air was thick with the scent of earth, smoke, and something older, the musk of ancient predators sizing each other up. For a heartbeat, none of them moved. Then the cliff exploded into chaos. Gorith charged first, his massive fists pounding the ground as he closed the distance. The Horned Doom met him head-on, horns lowered. The impact was cataclysmic, bone against horn, muscle against muscle. The shockwave sent loose stones tumbling into the valley below. Kong didn't wait. He lunged into the fray, his massive hand clamping around the Horned Doom's neck. With a roar, he wrenched the Titan sideways, slamming it into the cliff wall. Gorith seized the moment, hammering his fists into the creature's armored flank. The Horned Doom bellowed, its claws lashing out. One caught Gorith across the chest, tearing through bone plating and sending him staggering back. Another raked across Kong's ribs, drawing a fresh spray of blood. Below, the temple's ritual reached a fever pitch. The masked figures chanting grew louder, faster, the glowing crystal shards in their weapons pulsing in unison. The column of light above the altar split again, sending a fourth beam deep into the jungle. Dr. Varma's eyes widened. "They're not just summoning titans," she whispered. "They're calling something bigger." The Horned Doom roared and spun, its tail, a spiked, armored whip, smashing into Kong's side. The blow lifted the White King Kong off his feet and hurled him toward the cliff edge. He caught himself at the last moment, his massive fingers digging into the rock. Gorith leapt onto the Horned Doom's back, his fists pounding against the armored plates. The Horned Doom bucked violently, slamming Gorith into the cliff wall. The black-furred Titan slid to the ground, dazed but not beaten. Kong surged forward again, his roar echoing across the valley. He grabbed the Horned Doom's horns and twisted with all his strength. The Titan's neck strained, its claws scrabbling for purchase. From a tree-lean, a new sound joined the battle, a deep, rhythmic thudding, like the footsteps of a giant. The jungle canopy shook as trees toppled, and then a massive shape emerged. Thalrock the Stonehide, drawn by the temple's call. For Titans now stood within striking distance of each other. Dr. Varma's heart pounded. This is going to tear the jungle apart. Thalrock didn't hesitate. He lowered his tusks and charged straight into the melee. The Horned Doom was driven sideways, its claws gouging deep trenches in the stone. Kong leapt clear, landing beside Gorith. For a moment, the two ancient rivals locked eyes. No words, no truce, just an unspoken understanding. The Horned Doom was the greater threat. They moved together. Kong struck first, his fist slamming into the Horned Doom's jaw. Gorith followed with a bone-shattering blow to its ribs. Thalrock's tusks caught the creature in the side, lifting it off the ground and hurling it toward the cliff edge. The Horned Doom roared in fury, its claws lashing out wildly. One caught Thalrock across the face, leaving a deep gash. Another raked across Gorith's arm, tearing flesh. Kong leapt onto the Titan's back, his massive hands gripping its horns. With a roar, he wrenched its head back, exposing the vulnerable throat. Below, the temple's glow flared blindingly bright. The chanting stopped. For a moment, the jungle was silent. Then the ground split open. From the altar itself, a shape began to rise, not a Titan, but something far worse. It was serpentine, its body covered in black scales that shimmered with an oily sheen. Its head was crowned with a halo of bone spines, and its eyes burned with cold, alien intelligence. Dr. Varma's voice was barely a whisper. "That's not from this world." The Horned Doom seemed to sense the arrival of the new creature. It bucked violently, throwing Kong off its back. The White King Kong hit the ground hard, the impact shaking the cliff. Gorith staggered to his feet, blood dripping from his mouth. Thalrock backed away, his tusks lowering defensively. The serpentine monster, Zirith the World Coil, uncoiled fully, its body stretching longer than the temple itself. It hissed, the sound like steam escaping from the Earth's core. General Draven's voice crackled over the comms in the control room. New target identified. All units, prepare for maximum engagement. But even he sounded uncertain. Zirith's gaze swept over the Titans, then fixed on the Horned Doom. The two creatures stared at each other for a long, tense moment. Then, without warning, Zirith struck, its massive jaws closing around the horned Doom's shoulder. The armored titan roared in pain, thrashing violently. Kong saw his chance. He charged, slamming into the horned Doom's side with enough force to topple it. Gorith joined in, his fists pounding relentlessly. The horned Doom broke free of Zirith's grip, but it was bleeding heavily now. It staggered toward the cliff edge, claws scrabbling for purchase. Kong roared, the sound rolling like thunder. He pounded his chest once, then leapt, his massive fist coming down on the horned Doom's skull. The blow drove the titan to its knees. Zirith hissed again, its coils tightening around the temple below. The ancient structure groaned under the pressure, cracks spiderwebbing across its surface. Dr. Varma realized what was about to happen. If that temple collapses, whatever's powering this, it could destroy everything. Kong seemed to understand. He turned from the horned Doom, his gaze locking on Zirith. The serpent's eyes narrowed, as if recognizing him. The two titans, one of fur and bone, the other of scale and shadow, stared at each other across the battlefield. The jungle held its breath. The air was molten with tension. Zirith's coils tightened around the temple, stone groaning under the pressure. The glowing runes flickered wildly, as if the ancient structure itself feared what was happening. White King Kong stood at the cliff's edge, his golden eyes locked on the alien serpent. The horned Doom staggered nearby, blood dripping from its armored plates. Gorith the Blackback circled like a predator, bone armor cracked but fists still ready. Thalrock the Stonehide pawed the ground, tusks gleaming in the moonlight. 5 titans, 1 battlefield, and the jungle itself holding its breath. Zirith's hiss cut through the night, a sound that seemed to bypass the ears and crawl directly into the mind. Dr. Varma clutched her head, a spike of pain lancing through her skull. She stumbled, barely catching herself on a jagged rock. The masked figures below the cliff had fallen silent. They knelt in perfect unison, heads bowed toward the serpent. The leader, the one with the crystal-tipped staff, raised it high. The crystal pulsed once, twice, and then shattered. The light from the mountains died instantly. The horned Doom roared in fury, as if the loss of that energy was a personal wound. It lunged at Zirith, claws flashing. The serpent moved with impossible speed, its body blurring as it coiled around the armored titan. The horned Doom thrashed, horns gouging deep furrows in Zirith's scales, but the serpent's grip only tightened. Kong moved. With a ground-shaking leap, he landed on Zirith's back, his massive fists pounding into the serpent's skull. The alien titan hissed, its coils loosening just enough for the horned Doom to wrench free. Gorith saw his chance. He barreled forward, slamming into Zirith's side with enough force to topple a building. Thalrock followed, tusks driving into the serpent's midsection. The battlefield became a blur of motion. Fur, scale, horn, and tusk colliding in a storm of primal violence. Kong ducked under a whip-fast strike from Zirith's tail, the spines slicing through the air where his head had been a heartbeat before. He countered with a crushing blow to the serpent's jaw, the impact echoing like a cannon shot. The horned Doom, still bleeding heavily, circled warily. Its crimson eyes flicked between Kong and Zirith, calculating. Dr. Varma crawled to the cliff's edge, peering down at the temple. The cracks in its surface were spreading fast. Chunks of stone tumbled into the valley, smashing into the jungle below. If the temple collapsed completely, she realized the energy it had been channeling might not just vanish, it could explode. She grabbed her radio. "This is Varma. We need an immediate evacuation. The temple is unstable." A deafening roar cut her off. Zirith had wrapped its coils around Thalrock, lifting the massive quadruped into the air. The Stonehide bellowed in pain, tusks flailing uselessly. Kong charged, leaping onto the serpent's back once more. His fists hammered into the alien spine, each blow sending shockwaves through its body. The horned Doom lunged in from the side, horns driving deep into Zirith's flank. The serpent shrieked, releasing Thalrock, who crashed to the ground with a bone-jarring thud. Gorith roared and joined the assault, his fists pounding in rhythm with Kong's. For a moment, it seemed the combined might of the Titans might bring Zirith down. Then the serpent's eyes flared with blinding light. A pulse of energy exploded outward, hurling all 4 Titans away like leaves in a storm. Kong slammed into the cliff wall, stone shattering under the impact. Gorith tumbled into the tree-line, flattening everything in his path. The horned doom skidded across the ground, carving deep trenches in the rock. Thalrock rolled to a stop near the cliff's edge, groaning. Dr. Varma shielded her eyes from the glare. When she looked again, Zirith was rising higher, its coils tightening around the temple once more. The runes flared brighter than ever, cracks spiderwebbing across the entire structure. The masked leader raised both arms, chanting in that same alien tongue. The other figures joined in, their voices blending into a single, resonant note that made the air vibrate. Kong staggered to his feet, blood matting his white fur. His golden eyes locked on the serpent. He pounded his chest once, a sound like a war drum, and charged. Zirith struck first. Its head darted forward, jaws snapping shut around Kong's arm. The White King Kong roared in pain, but didn't stop. He drove his free fist into the serpent's eye, the impact forcing it to release him. The horned doom lunged from the side, horns slamming into Zirith's ribs. Gorith emerged from the trees, grabbing the serpent's tail and yanking with all his strength. Thalrock, battered but unbroken, lowered his tusks and charged. The 4 Titans hit Zirith at once. The serpent writhed, its coils lashing out in every direction. One caught Gorith across the chest, sending him flying into a boulder. Another wrapped around Thalrock's midsection, lifting him off the ground again. Kong climbed the serpent's back, his fists pounding relentlessly into its skull. The horned doom tore at its flanks, claws raking deep furrows in the black scales. The masked leader's chant grew louder, faster. The temple's glow reached a blinding intensity. Dr. Varma realized what was happening. "They're feeding it," she shouted. "The temple's energy. It's going into Zirith." Kong seemed to understand. He roared, the sound echoing across the valley, and leapt from the serpent's back toward the temple itself. His massive fists slammed into the altar, shattering the top layer of stone. The glow faltered. The masked leader screamed in rage, raising the broken crystal staff. A beam of energy shot toward Kong, striking him in the chest. The White King Kong staggered, smoke rising from his fur, but he didn't fall. With another roar, he brought both fists down on the altar again. This time, the entire structure cracked. The light died. Zirith froze, its coils loosening. The horned doom staggered back, panting. Gorith pushed himself to his feet, eyes narrowing. Thalrock collapsed to his knees, exhausted. For a heartbeat, the jungle was silent. Then the temple exploded. The blast was a shockwave of pure force, hurling Titans and humans alike in every direction. Dr. Varma was thrown backward, the world spinning around her. She hit the ground hard, the breath knocked from her lungs. When she looked up, the temple was gone. Nothing but a smoking crater remained. Zirith lay at the center, its body limp, smoke rising from its scales. Kong stood over it, chest heaving, his white fur streaked with blood and ash. The horned doom rose slowly, its crimson eyes locking on Kong. For a moment, it seemed ready to attack again, but then it turned, limping into the jungle. Gorith watched it go, then looked back at Kong. The 2 Titans stared at each other for a long moment before Gorith, too, turned away. Thalrock remained where he was, breathing heavily, before finally lumbering off into the darkness. Dr. Varma approached cautiously. You saved us," she said softly. Kong looked at her, his golden eyes unreadable. Then he turned and walked toward the jungle, disappearing into the shadows. Above, the first light of dawn touched the treetops. The jungle was quiet again, but it was not peace. Somewhere, deep in the earth, something else had heard the roar. The first light of dawn spilled across the jungle, painting the canopy in gold. Smoke still curled from the crater where the temple had stood, its ruins nothing but shattered stone and scorched earth. White King Kong stood at the edge of the devastation, his white fur streaked with blood and ash. His golden eyes scanned the horizon, every muscle tense. The Horned Doom had limped away into the shadows. Gorith had vanished into the treeline. Foul Rock had disappeared into the mist. And Zirith, the alien serpent, lay motionless in the crater, its black scales dulled, its coils slack. Dr. Varma climbed over the rubble, her boots crunching on fragments of ancient stone. She stopped beside Kong, looking down at the fallen serpent. "Is it dead?" she asked softly. Kong didn't answer. His gaze never left the body. A sudden tremor rippled through the ground. Dr. Varma staggered, grabbing onto a broken pillar for balance. The crater floor shifted, and Ziritha's eyes snapped open. The serpent's hiss was weaker now, but still carried that alien resonance that made the air vibrate. Its coils twitched, muscles straining. Kong roared, leaping down into the crater. His fists came down like hammers, pounding into the serpent's skull. Zirith writhed, but its movements were sluggish. The battle had drained it. Then, from the shadows at the crater's edge, the masked figures returned. There were more of them now, dozens, maybe hundreds, moving in perfect silence. Their black chitin armor gleamed in the morning light, their beast-like masks hiding any trace of humanity. The leader stepped forward, a new staff in hand, its crystal tip glowing faintly. He raised it high, and the masked warriors began to chant. Dr. Varma's stomach dropped. "They're trying to pull it back," she whispered. Kong heard the chant too. He roared, the sound echoing off the crater walls, and charged toward the leader. But before he could reach him, a volley of spears tipped with glowing shards rained down. The shards exploded on impact, releasing bursts of blinding light. Kong staggered, momentarily disoriented. Zirith seized the moment, its tail lashing out and slamming into Kong's side. The White King Kong was thrown against the crater wall, stone shattering under the impact. From the treeline, a familiar roar answered, deep, guttural, and filled with fury. Gorith the Blackback emerged, his massive frame cutting through the mist. But he wasn't alone. The Horned Doom stepped out beside him. Dr. Varma's eyes widened. There together, it was unthinkable. Two ancient rivals, now moving with a shared purpose. The masked leader's chant grew louder, faster. Ziritha's coils began to tighten again, its strength returning. The Horned Doom and Gorith leapt into the crater, their combined weight shaking the ground. But they didn't attack Kong. They attacked the masked warriors. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Gorith's fists smashed through lines of masked soldiers, sending bodies flying. The Horned Doom's horns swept in wide arcs, scattering warriors like leaves in a storm. Kong shook off the daze and joined the fray, his massive hands tearing through the enemy ranks. Dr. Varma ducked behind a fallen slab of stone, watching in disbelief. "They're protecting him," she murmured. The leader raised his staff again, and a beam of light shot into the sky. The clouds above swirled, darkening. A low, distant rumble rolled across the horizon. From far away, an answering roar came. Not one, but many. Dr. Varma's blood ran cold. They're calling more titans. The first to arrive was a winged shadow that blotted out the sun. It descended with a scream like tearing metal. Virith the Stormwing, a titan with wings of jagged bone and feathers like blades. Lightning crackled along its talons as it landed on the crater's edge. The second was a hulking, quadrupedal beast with a mane of living fire, Pyrrhic the Flamehide. Each step it took scorched the ground. And somewhere beyond the horizon, more roars answered. Kong, Gorith, and the Horned Doom stood shoulder to shoulder now, their eyes locked on the new arrivals. Zirith coiled behind them, its gaze fixed on the masked leader. The air was electric with the promise of violence. Virith struck first, launching into the air and diving toward Kong. The White King Kong leapt to meet it, his fists slamming into its chest mid-flight. The impact sent both tumbling across the crater. Pyrrhic charged, flames streaming from its mane. Gorith met it head-on, the two titans colliding in a burst of fire and smoke. The Horned Doom turned on the masked warriors, its claws tearing through their ranks. Dr. Varma scrambled toward the crater wall, trying to get higher ground. She needed to see everything to understand the scale of what was happening. From her vantage point, she saw it all. Titans locked in battle, the massed army swarming like ants, the sky darkening as more winged shapes approached. This wasn't just a fight for the jungle anymore. This was a war for the world. Kong roared, slamming Virith into the ground. The winged titan screeched, its talons raking across his chest. Kong grabbed its neck and twisted, forcing it down. Pyrrhix flames lit the crater like a forge, the heat so intense that even the masked warriors kept their distance. Gorith's bone armor blackened under the onslaught, but he didn't yield. The Horned Doom tore through the enemy lines, its crimson eyes blazing. Then the sky split open. A massive shape descended, larger than any titan yet seen. Its body was a patchwork of scale, fur, and armor, as if it had devoured others and taken their strength. Its roar was a chorus of voices, each one belonging to a different beast. Dr. Varma's voice was barely a whisper. That's the apex. The apex landed with a force that shook the earth. Every titan froze, even Zirith. The masked leader dropped to one knee, head bowed. The apex's many eyes scanned the battlefield, then fixed on Kong. It stepped forward. Kong pounded his chest once, the sound echoing like a war drum. Gorith and the Horned Doom moved to flank him. Zirith uncoiled, its gaze shifting between the apex and the masked leader. The air was thick with anticipation. The apex roared, a sound that seemed to tear the sky itself, and charged. The apex's roar was not a sound. It was a force. It rolled across the battlefield like a tidal wave, shaking the ground, rattling the bones of every living thing. Even the other titans flinched. White King Kong stood his ground, his golden eyes locked on the monstrosity before him, a patchwork of scale, fur, and armor, each piece stolen from titans it had slain. Its many eyes glowed with different colors, each one a trophy from a conquered foe. Gorith the Blackback shifted beside him, fists clenched. The Horned Doom lowered its head, crimson eyes blazing. Zirith the World Coil uncoiled slowly, its alien gaze fixed on the apex. The masked leader raised his staff high, and the chanting began again. The masked army closed in, their black armor glinting in the dim light. The apex moved first, its massive arm, plated in jagged obsidian, swung in a wide arc, catching Gorith and hurling him into the crater wall. The impact sent a cloud of dust and stone into the air. Kong roared and charged, his fists slamming into the apex's chest. The blow barely staggered it. The apex's other arm shot out, claws raking across Kong's shoulder. Blood sprayed, bright against his white fur. The Horned Doom lunged from the side, horns driving into the apex's flank. The beast snarled, grabbing the Horned Doom by the neck and lifting it off the ground. Zirith struck. The serpent's coils wrapped around the apex's legs, pulling with all its strength. The apex stumbled, dropping the Horned Doom. Kong seized the moment, leaping onto the apex's back and pounding at its skull. The apex roared again, the sound so powerful it shattered nearby stone. It reached back, grabbing Kong and hurling him through the air. The White King Kong crashed into the ground, carving a trench in the dirt. Dr. Varma watched from the crater's edge, her heart pounding. The battle was beyond anything she could have imagined, a clash of gods in the flesh. But she saw something the Titans didn't. The masked leader's staff was glowing brighter with every moment the apex fought. "They're feeding it," she whispered. "Every blow, every roar, they're making it stronger." The apex turned its many eyes towards Zirith. The serpent hissed, but the apex moved with terrifying speed, grabbing its neck and slamming it into the ground. The impact sent a shock wave through the battlefield. Gorith re-entered the fight, leaping onto the apex's arm and biting down hard. The apex roared in pain, swinging its arm wildly to shake him off. The Horned Doom charged again, horns slamming into the apex's ribs. Kong was back on his feet. His chest heaved, his golden eyes burning with fury. He pounded his chest once, a sound like a war drum, and charged. The four titans hit the apex at once. Kong's fists hammered its skull. Gorith's blows rained down on its chest. The Horned Doom's horns drove deep into its side. Xerath's coils tightened around its legs. For the first time, the apex staggered. The masked leader screamed, raising his staff high. A beam of energy shot into the sky, and the clouds above swirled violently. Lightning forked down, striking the apex. Its wounds began to close. Dr. Varma's eyes widened. They're healing it. Kong saw the staff. He roared, breaking away from the fight, and charged toward the masked leader. The masked warriors swarmed to protect him, but Kong plowed through them like a living avalanche. The leader raised the staff, a blast of energy striking Kong in the chest. The White King Kong staggered but kept moving. His massive hand closed around the staff and snapped it in two. The light in the sky died instantly. The apex roared in fury, its healing halted. The other titans pressed the attack. Gorith's fists cracked its armor. The Horned Doom's horns tore through its flank. Xerath's coils tightened until the apex's movement slowed. Kong returned, leaping onto the apex's back one final time. He pounded its skull with everything he had, each blow echoing like thunder. The apex dropped to one knee. The titans roared together, a sound that shook the earth. Kong's final blow drove the apex face first into the ground. The battlefield fell silent, save for the heavy breathing of the victors. The masked warriors broke ranks, fleeing into the jungle. The leader was gone, vanished into the chaos. Kong stood over the fallen apex, his chest heaving. Gorith stepped forward, meeting his gaze. For a long moment, the two ancient rivals stared at each other. Then Gorith turned and walked away. The Horned Doom limped into the shadows. Xerath uncoiled and slid silently into the jungle. Kong was alone. Dr. Varma approached cautiously. "You did it," she said softly. "You saved us." Kong looked at her, his golden eyes unreadable. Then he turned toward the rising sun and walked into the jungle, his massive form fading into the mist. Far away, deep beneath the earth, something stirred. The roar of the titans had been heard, and the world would never be the same.